I have several lighter coverage foundations, and a few of them are getting a little low. So I'm going to be making a repurchasing decision soon, and I thought it would be good to compare these head to head to see which one or which ones I might want to repurchase when I empty them. Today I'm going to be testing the NYX Born to Glow Naturally Radiant Foundation on the left side of my face and the Wet n Wild Tinted Hydrator on the right side of my face. I have the NYX in the shade Light and the Wet n Wild in the shade Fair. Hopefully they'll be close enough that it won't be obvious that I'm wearing two different foundations. Everything else is going to be the same. My SPF, my primer, my powder, cheek products, all of that will be the same on both sides of my face. The only variable will be the foundation. And I'm going to show you what it looks like in bright sunlight. I'm going to do a 4-hour check-in and an 8-hour check-in, and then we'll just see how these foundations do against each other. If that sounds interesting, then stick around. I'm going to use the Revlon Photo Focus Perfecting Primer for a blurring smoothing primer. That primer does a great job of blurring my pores and just preparing the face for makeup. If you look at the foundations on my palette, you can see this is the NYX and this is the Wet n Wild. And the NYX does have a more liquid consistency. You can see that it's running, but the Wet n Wild is not. So I'm going to take the NYX and dab it on. And then I have a clean blending sponge, and I'm going to use this side for the NYX, and I'll use this side for the Wet n Wild. And just pounce that in. And I'll try my best to use the same amount of foundation on each side of my face. I can't guarantee it's going to be perfect because I'm not perfect, but it'll be close enough. And I mean, this is the way I use these foundations, so it should be a good test. So that's the NYX side. It's such a pretty finish and such a pretty foundation. I'm going to swap hands. I used this hand for the NYX. I'm going to swap hands and do the Wet n Wild. And dab that around. And then go in and blend. They're kind of overlapping a little on my nose and chin, but that's because I don't want a line down the center of my nose or my chin. So that's going to just have to be what it is. And then I'm going to blend a little on the other side, but going back to my NYX side of the sponge so I don't mix up anything. So just looking at it here, I do feel like maybe the NYX gave me a little better coverage than the Wet n Wild did. I can see a little bit more of my red spots on this side, but I have more red spots on this side than I have on this side. So I am going to build each of them just a little bit in through here because that's what I do when I put on foundation. I always put a little extra on my cheeks, and so I'm going to do that for both of them. And I am moving my sponge dependent on which side of my face I'm working on, just so you know. So yeah, even with that, let me know what you think down in the comments, but here's the Wet n Wild side, and here's the NYX side. Kind of like in the NYX side, a little bit better than the coverage on the Wet n Wild side. But coverage is only part of the story. So I'm going to finish my makeup and then come back and we'll look at what everything looks like together, and then I'll take you outside. I've got the rest of my makeup on my face. In addition to the primer that I already showed you and the foundations, remember NYX is on this side, Wet n Wild's on this side. I also used the Maybelline Superstay Concealer in 05 Ivory. I powdered under my eye with the Moira Set and Correct Finishing Powder in 100. I powdered the rest of my face, the whole thing, with the Maybelline Fit Me Fair 05. And then for bronzer, blush, and highlight, I used the Wet n Wild Color Icon Bronzer in, what is this one? Sunset Striptease. The e.l.f. Primer Infused Shimmer Blush in Always Preppy. And then from Space Case Cosmetics, the Scene from Space Highlighter. I believe I got this in the Ipsy a long time ago. For my eyes, I used the She Glam Deep Feelings palette. This is such a pretty cool tone neutral palette. Isn't that beautiful? Anyway, I kind of rediscovered this in my palette collection declutter videos. If you haven't seen that, I'll put that up there for you to go look at when you're done here. Then I used the Maybelline Telescopic Lift, the NYX eye pencil in silver on the lower waterline, and the Wet n Wild Breakup Proof Retractable Eyeliner in black on my upper waterline. On my lips, I have the ColourPop Lippy Pencil in Good and Plenty, and then for my lipstick, I have the e.l.f. new O-Face lipstick in Effortless. Such a beautiful color. Are you ready? So satisfying. All right, I'm going to bring you in close so you can see my face. My lighting today is pretty much natural daylight. I have one small light just to my right because there's a window to my left, and so just to balance it a little bit, I have that, but otherwise it's natural light, and I'm hoping that that gives you a good representation of what the makeup really looks like, not washed out by the lights. I do have some glitter fallout from the palette, but I don't care. I just get to sparkle a little. So the Wet n Wild side and the NYX side. I think maybe my pores are a little bit more blurred on the Wet n Wild side than on the NYX side. Just looking in my mirror, I don't see a whole lot of difference. There's more of my skin showing through on the Wet n Wild side. The NYX side does have more coverage, but it also looks more makeup-y. I'm going to admit that I am predisposed to liking the Wet n Wild because it's less expensive than the NYX, but I also want what's good and not just what's cheap. So anyway, that's what I've got right now. So let's go outside. All right, it is super bright out here today. It's a little bit windy, a little bit chilly, so my eyes are kind of watery just a little bit from the wind. But I am going to take my hand away, close my eyes, and show you my face. So there is the Wet n Wild side and the NYX side. And I'm not going to be able to see what this footage looks like until I get inside because it's so bright. But I will look at it and see what I think, and then I'll be back for a 4-hour check-in. See you soon! All right, it is the 4-hour check-in mark, and I'm at the theater working. I came back to one of the dressing rooms where I have some vanity lights where I can maybe get some decent light. There's daylight behind me, so I'm not sure how this is going to work out, but I wanted to do the 4-hour check-in, and I'm looking in the mirror as I'm looking to check this out. And I feel like on the NYX side, I've kind of got some weird gathering and some polka dot pores going on right here. The Wet n Wild side is a little bit rubbed off on my nose because I've been blowing my nose. But the NYX really isn't as worn off, and obviously I've been blowing both sides of my nose. So for that respect, I kind of like the NYX better, but I don't like the way the NYX is looking on my cheek. Let me turn around. Maybe the light would be better. The daylight. Can you see what I'm talking about right in here? The lipstick is completely gone. I ate lunch and it was pretty much gone after that, and I haven't reapplied. So anyway, I don't think that either side is looking bad, but if I had to pick one side over the other, I think I like the way the Wet n Wild side looks better, even though it's a little bit worn off here. It's not doing this funky polka dot pores thing. I don't like that. Anyway, I will be back for an 8-hour check-in a little bit later. That one I'll be home for, so I'll see you then. I am back, and it is actually about 9.5 hours since I first put this makeup on because I got home and it wasn't quite time for the 8-hour check-in, and then we had dinner and decided to watch a movie. So it's now 9.5 hours. And honestly, I'm not sure that there's really been much change since the 4-hour check-in. Where the Wet n Wild was worn off here, it's still a little bit worn off, and where the NYX was weird on my cheek, it's still kind of weird. There's like a dry spot right there that it's clinging to, but I didn't get any settling in my creases here that sometimes foundations like to settle in. And I do have this deep crease over on this side of my jaw, and it did settle there, but everything settles there, so not going to hold that against it. And I don't have a comparable one on this side of my face, so I don't know if the Wet n Wild would have done it or not. So upshot of all of that, I really don't think that there's a clear winner here. I do like both foundations, and I think I would be perfectly happy repurchasing either one of them, but this one wins on price. So when these are gone, this is the one that I'm going to repurchase. I hope this concept of putting these products head to head like this is helpful to you. And if you'd like to see me do it with more products, then give me a thumbs up so that I know you like it. My name is Tina, and I thank you for spending a little time with me today. If you have a little bit more time to watch, I'll put a video up there for you to go to. If you're not subscribed and you think that you'd like to see more of my videos, then I would invite you to subscribe. I hope that you have a beautiful, blessed day, and I will see you in my next video. Bye-bye.